It's finally Friday. It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
All right, welcome back to the Friday Show, presented by the Match Series, which wraps up this weekend at Laurel Park. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Pennsylvania Derby, big weekend of racing. But first, let's start with this.
Peter Fonda and Susan George are Dirty Mary and Crazy Larry. There's nothing they won't try.
Thought we'd have a little fun with this, Ray. This week, owner Larry Best, who's spent a lot of money in the last couple of years buying thoroughbreds, gave an interview with the Blood Horse where he talked about why he's putting Instagrand, his very impressive juvenile, on the shelf for the rest of this year, pointing for a 3-year-old campaign. He also said if he wins the Derby, he might not run in the Preakness or the Belmont because he doesn't believe in the Triple Crown. All right? So my question is he Crazy Larry?
Well, I'm not a psychiatrist by trade, but I have looked at a lot of horse racing over the years, and he's got a very different philosophy than most owners. But on the other hand, it's his money, it's his horses, and it's a lot of money. He has spent, since he got into the business just 2 years ago, he spent $21.5 million on horses, and he's got 22 horses.
Yeah.
Now, you can do the math without a calculator. That's almost $1 million per horse. So he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he is a contrarian in his business life, and he's obviously a contrarian in horse racing, and he thinks he has a better idea of how to prepare horses, get them ready for big races, and what to do with them than a Hall of Fame trainer like Jerry Hollendorfer.
I will give him kudos for one or two things. First of all, he's saying put the horse first. We always talk about that. That's what we want. That's what should be done. So that is the good part about what he is saying. Where I kind of will draw some differences here is, for one thing, the science and several veterinarians like Dr. Larry Bramlich say horses need to race and train as 2-year-olds in order for the bone modeling process to be complete, to grow stronger bones so that they can race longer and have better careers. So he's kind of ignoring that. So he's saying, well, I don't know, the science. Maybe he hasn't done his homework on that. The other thing is he's saying, today's horses are over-raced. Well, they're not. Because if you look at history, race horses ran far more often in the past than they do today. And one of the reasons I believe that's the case is because of Lasix. I believe that's as it's a dehydrating drug that increases the need for recovery time, and also the overuse of therapeutic medications and the breeding, how the breeding has changed over the last few decades. There are a lot of things that go into the reason why horses are not being over-raced today. So I think he's off there, but I will give him credit for putting the horse first.
Yeah, he's talked about how the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown has been really hard on horses, and there's no denying that. One thing I wish he would go back and study is look at how some of the best horses in history have done as far as races and training and time off. If you go back to the 70s when there were 3 Triple Crown winners, those horses all had time off, but they raced multiple times as 2-year-olds. They didn't race 2 times. They raced 7, 8, 9 times as 2-year-olds. And then they got to late October, and they were given some time off. They came back in February and March. So it is important to give these horses some time off, but to go from September until, I'm not sure when he's intending to take off the bubble wrap off of Instagram, but again, he's just trying to reinvent a game that I don't think it's broken. I really don't.
Well, that's a whole nother debate, whether it's broken. But I will say that if he's looking at this from a strategic point of view, when it comes to the Kentucky Derby, so say he wants to win the Kentucky Derby, history suggests that cranking a horse up during their 2-year-old season for a big race like the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is not a recipe for winning the Kentucky Derby, because only a couple of horses have done it. So he might be smart in that respect. The other thing that he might be doing, even though he probably doesn't even realize it, is, as I talked about over racing, which is not happening, he is adapting to the new reality that horses can't race as often as they used to for the reasons that I cited. So, in a way, he is doing what should be done. He's adapting to the reality, and he's seeing all these horses come out of the Triple Crown Series and never race again, or be retired in June, or go on to have poor careers after that. And he's saying, well, I don't want that to happen to my horses. So in that respect, he might be making a good move.
Well, on the other hand, Instagrand is 2 for 2. He won a maiden race at Los Alamitos, and he won the Best Pal Stakes at Del Mar. Both were one-turn races, I think. So is this just an early, maturing, precocious 2-year-old that just happened to be better than everybody else he ran against? Or is this some superstar that's going to keep improving into his 3-year-old season, and he wants to run him at 4? I mean, there's no way of telling that right now. The only way you tell is by racing them. And I don't understand what he's doing here.
Well, it doesn't seem like he's motivated by money, even though maybe he is, of course, in his business life. But here he might see this as a hobby, like most people are supposed to, because if you want to make a big fortune in horse racing, or a small fortune, you start with a big one. So he knows that. He sees that. He's coming in. This is going to be fun. I want to do it right. I want to do right by the horse. He also is talking about wanting Instagram to race as a 4-year-old. So you got to give him credit for that too. He's looking at longevity So there are a lot of things that he's thinking here that are positive. I do think some of the reasoning that he's giving behind it isn't necessarily matching up with reality. But in the end result might be what more people need to do, which is back off a little bit on this generation of horses.
Well, we'll find out on Saturday if that plan is working with another one of his horses, really his most successful horse, his biggest earner so far, Instilled Regard, who won the Lecomte Stakes at the fairgrounds over the winter. And he finished a really good 4th in the Kentucky Derby behind Justify. So what did he do after that? He said, well, we're going to take it easy on him. In fact, we're going to ship him from Jerry Hollendorfer to Chad Brown in New York and point for a midsummer campaign. That turned into a fall campaign because he's entered Saturday in the Pennsylvania Derby, his first start since the Kentucky Derby. He came out of the Derby fine, no problems. He just said, we're gonna give him time off. We'll see how it works. I don't give Instilled Regard a shot in the Pennsylvania Derby. We'll see how he does, but I just can't see it.
We're going to talk about that in a minute, but first I want to make sure I make this point about what I just said in terms of the over racing issue and fitting with this generation of horses. His horses are still getting Lasix. So I have a problem with that in terms of, I know that is one of the reasons they don't race as much. And so I think he's being hypocritical there, and what should be done is getting rid of race day medication and the overuse of other therapeutics, and God knows what else might be going on out there. That's what needs to be solved so that the breed is stronger and can race more often like they used to. Okay, we have a poll question about this. Go. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I want to see Larry Best in this business for the long run, and I'm just not so sure that buying 22 horses for $21.5 million and then treating him with kid gloves like he's doing is the right way for him to be successful. And he's got good trainers. I think he should maybe listen to them a little bit. It's his horses, it's his money and all that, but I want him to stick around in this game. I want to see him spending millions more in the future, and not necessarily $1 million a horse. There's a lot of good horses out there that you can get for less than $1 million.
Well, let's see what people think about this. We have a poll on our website asking the question, is Larry Best doing the right thing or the wrong thing by talking about skipping the Triple Crown or saying he doesn't believe in it? Let us know your thoughts at PaulickReport.com. Well, as you mentioned, this weekend is the Pennsylvania Derby. I know who you don't like. Who do you like?
I think McKinsey is going to win the Pennsylvania Derby. This was the number one 3-year-old in Bob Baffert's barn early this year till he was sidelined with an injury. Lo and behold, he went to the bench and found Justify, who went on to win the Triple Crown. McKenzie's been working great. Nobody is better at bringing a horse off a layoff than Baffert. I'm going to give that to him. The Cotillion, let's not forget, is also Saturday. We get another chance to see Monomoy Girl, who I think has already clinched the 3-year-old filly championship.
Yeah, she is fantastic, and McKenzie is super talented. But earlier this year, I said Hofburg is going to do something big by the time that his 3-year-old season is over. He didn't, win the Derby or any of the Triple Crown races, but I had a feeling. I think he's super talented as well. I think this is one of those moments. He's going into this race working huge, and he's got blinkers on, and I think he's going to run a huge race in the Pennsylvania Derby. Also this weekend, Laurel Park. It's the finale of the match series. What do we have on tap?
Well, there's 3 races, as you said, all at Laurel Park, all in the sprint divisions. There's the Sensible Lady Turf Dash for fillies and mares on turf. There's the Laurel Dash for turf sprinters. And then there's the Frank J. DeFrancis Memorial Dash, which traditionally is one of the best sprint races of the fall. That's in the male dirt sprint division. And it's been fun to follow these horses all year and see their owners and trainers accumulating points in each of these divisions and the overall championship as well.
This is one of those ideas that was brought back that actually works, and I think they've got to be very pleased with the results, and we appreciate their support of the Friday show. That's going to do it for this week's edition, presented by the Match Series. I'm Scott Jagow along with Ray Paulick. We'll talk to you next week.